אם אתה יודע מה היה רוי?
Okay. I'm going to introduce Roi Zultan, our former students, and now a faculty at Be'er Sheva University. We'll talk on a bit about his own experience, right, as a student here.
It will be a mixture.
And a mixture, and he will connect it to his research.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. It's a great honor to speak on this occasion. I'm a bit embarrassed to be here after all the brilliant talks we heard yesterday and today on people doing important stuff, and this is going to be a bit self-indulgent. Let's talk a bit about my experiences and what I do. In a way, I think it's a bit like a bar mitzvah. I guess most of you have been at least to a bar mitzvah as one yourself, and so you know that there are several things that are expected of a nice Jewish boy in his coming of age. But there's one duty that under no circumstances can be shirked, and that's you have to stand up and say, I want to thank my father and mother for bringing me where I am today. So this is what I'm doing. I'm thanking my mother and father, the center members, the administrative staff, for bringing me where I am today. If you think I'm pushing the metaphor a bit too much, when I left here for a postdoc 2 years ago, Hannah said, never forget that you are the fruit of our loins. So if you want, you can argue with Hannah. If you dare, I don't. So this, nothing is happening. Okay. Yeah, that's the mail we got. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to talk about my research and relate some anecdotes. I hope I'll remember at least 80% of what I want to say. So the general idea is I want to tell you how I got where I am today, which is a lecture of economics in BGU. And I started as a graduate student in psychology when I came to the center. And I think I really wouldn't have been where I am today if not for the Center for Rationality. So I'll tell you a bit about that. I'm going to tell you something about something I did 10 years ago and something that I did recently. And the first one was with a very psychological approach, and the last one is very economic theory, game theory. But I think the underlying question is similar in a way. I'm really still interested in the same things, but the approach has changed. So I'll start with how I came to know the center. It started about 10 years ago. I was doing my master's with Yaakov, who is somewhere here in the back. So I was working with Yaakov. Here we should have. Yeah, okay. So that's a photo of me working with Yaakov in a typical Center for Rationality work environment. And one day, Yaakov said, there's this thing called Center for Rationality in Givat Ram, and Judith and I recently joined. Every year they have a retreat where they go, I think, to 5 days back then, go on hikes and do talks. And we're going to go there for the first time this year. And they asked me, I don't know what it is, but they asked me if I want to bring some students along. So, you like hiking? Do you want to come? I said, sure. Sounds like fun. Where do I sign up? And this first retreat really burned in my mind as a very special experience. It was definitely, at the time, I considered it as a highlight of my year. Still think that it's a very meaningful experience for me. Because already in that first retreat, I discovered all the things that make the Center for Rationality very special. And, not only the fact that if you have to give 60 minutes talk, then you have to prepare only 15 minutes, like I discovered yesterday, or rediscovered. Or maybe if Sergio is not around, you have to prepare 25 minutes to do 60 minutes. But the first important thing is the diversity and the breadth. Remember, we had our talks about, Maya gave a talk about multiple answer questions, and we had talks about animal behavior and legal issues and statistical algorithms, and most of the people kept talking about something called Nash equilibrium, which I think after 2-3 days I started, well, let's say after 2 days I knew how to spell it, because someone wrote it. By the end of the retreat I had an initial grasp of what.
In English? In Hebrew, I think.
No, I remember someone wrote it in Hebrew. That I remember. But that's the really, I think, what really makes the center so special is encapsulated in one moment that I remember from that retreat, which I talked about 2 years ago when I left, so many of you heard me talk about it. That of the center members I met at that retreat, there were 2 that I already heard of because I had books that they published, which still hold a very special place in my library. And I remember there was one talk when I was first of all, I was in awe just meeting these people in person that I only heard about before, and talking to them. And in one talk, it happened so I was sitting between them, and they kept leaning toward me and asking me if I understood, and making sure that I understand, and just wanting to make this young student whom they never met feel welcome and at home. And I think that's really the spirit of the center. You have these people who are amazing at the top of the field, and still they are the kindest people you could meet anywhere. And many of the center members had to put up with me coming to them and asking them questions and discussing ideas that I had and things I was working on. And they always have time. They always like to discuss and talk. And I'm sure that this is the experience of any student member. And so the people I talked about, are these 2 wonderful people. Okay, so now I'm going to talk a bit about research. The first thing I want to talk about is started from another member of the Center for Rationality. Maya decided that it would be nice to do a seminar on decision making in television game shows. Let's see if this works. I have a film here. I didn't find the Israeli version, so this is from the British version. It's called The Vault. Maya obtained the videos of the first season, and she had people, research assistants, code everything that happened in the show, and we worked on it. So all you need to know for what I'm going to tell you is that there are 3 participants in the show. At the beginning of the show, they are in separate rooms. Each one in turn comes into the studio, is asked 10 general knowledge questions, answers as best he or she can, and then the 2 with the highest score, other things happen, the 2 with the highest score go on to the next level. And we looked at the data, me and a fellow student, Alonit Rania, and Alonit actually discovered that the first and second participants, on average, they manage to answer around 8 out of 10 questions. The third participant get around 7 out of 10, and the difference is significant. So that's very strange. These people, nothing happens except for the order. They don't know how well the previous participants did. They just come, each one sitting in his room, come up, answer questions. So why should there be a difference? So that looked very interesting. And looking for theoretical randomly. Yeah. We check. We went. It's random. It is random. We check. Maya and I were there in the studio, talked with Aristal.
Maybe the guy who writes the questions.
The questions are random.
Out of the year.
That's not the purpose of the talk, and I don't have much time. So let's just, well, we can discuss the details later. It's not that interesting.
You know that Angelo plays sequences here.
What?
You know that Angelo
I know.
sequences.
I actually prepared more than 30 minutes for a 30-minute talk, which is completely irrational. I'm frothing at the mouth. So I came to a line of literature which is asking things like that. How much are you willing to pay to bet on a match between these two Chinese teams, assuming you know nothing about, and there's a match next week. So think how much you're willing to bet, whatever it is, and I could ask you this question. When it's a match that took place last week. So the way I first heard about it, I think from my end, the way it said it is, are you willing to bet on a coin toss, or are you willing to bet on this coin? I think most people get the intuition that you feel a bit queasy about betting about something that already happened. So people
took place last week, not in Shanghai, but in the third city. Just to make it symmetrical. It's asymmetrical. So there is a slight problem.
No, it doesn't matter. But it's the same. Everything is the same except for the timing.
It's not like the coin.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Yeah, it's the same with betting on stocks going up or down, various things. And in a 1991 paper, Chip Heath and Amos Tversky came up with what I think is a compelling explanation. I'll give you my short interpretation is that people don't like to be wrong. If you bet about something that will happen next week, you can't be wrong. There's no correct answer. But if you're betting about something that happened last week, then there is a correct answer. It is out there. Whatever you say, it might be right, it might be wrong. You don't like to be wrong, so you don't like betting on it. You don't like to be in this situation.
Why is it different from betting whether there's intelligent life on another planet? Either it's true or it's not true, right?
Somebody knows.
Yeah,
somebody
okay.
knows the answer.
Yeah.
When somebody knows.
Somebody else knows the answer.
Okay, the answer is there. That's okay.
Not only it's there. Yes, I mean, the answer is there.
Someone knows.
For B,
Okay, for that.
maybe or C, but it's not just. He's right.
It's
either people know the answer.
That's an additional question which I didn't get to study. But that's an additional question.
I think he's right. That's a
It could be an important variable. That's an empirical question which was not tested. So my interpretation was that if two participants go to the next level, after two you don't know you can't know about anyone whether they failed or not. The third participant, when he comes on, the audience, and that's related, the audience knows that the number of questions this participant has to get right in order to go to the next level. And that increases pressure and so on. So that was my theory, which I want to check. I'll tell you about one thing I did. I'm not sure I have it. No, probably not. So I did a private value auction where you have two bidders making a bid. Each one has a private value. The first mover is told you make a bid. After you make a bid, the second mover will make a bid. Only if your bid is higher will you win the auction, meaning you get your private value minus the amount you bid. The second mover is told the first mover has made his bid, that's fine. That's out there. Now you have to make a bid only if your bid is higher than the existing bid. Will you win the auction?
It doesn't know the first bid.
Yeah, they don't know. Of course, if they know, that's a different story. And those are the results. For the equilibrium, probably Sergio already calculated it. Or another. Equilibrium should be, this is the bid as proportion of the private value, should be 1/2. And you see that second movers bid higher. So my story is that you know that for the second mover, there is a bid that they have to surpass. They don't want to be wrong, or more formally, second movers are more risk averse. So that looks very nice. What I didn't tell you is that I ran lots of experiments, mainly on matching pennies, and I didn't get the effect. Only in this one I got the effect. And so back then, I guess I was naive enough to say, if I only got in one experiment an effect, before I go and publish it, I should replicate it. And I tried to replicate it, and I didn't get the effect. So that's...
The Weizmann Institute, they had a journal, the Journal of Irreproducible Results. So you could publish it.
No, so actually, last week when I went back to the materials, I realized that there is a design difference. There is something different between the original and the replication. So I might get back to it now. But so far nothing came out of it except for I presented, so some of you heard all this before, I presented this stuff in one of the retreats, and Alon and Ehud were in the audience, and all the story about post-diction and prediction, betting on the past or the future, piqued their interest, and a few years later, they published this paper in Michigan Law Review. So I think, and my name is somewhere here in the footnote. I think this is a good example of the cross-fertilization that goes on in the center all the time. And you don't see it in the product, because this is not a joint publication, interdisciplinary. But it did come from the interdisciplinary interaction in the center. And these things happen all the time. So, moving on, different thing. Again, thanks to Yaakov, shortly after, or during the time I was working on these things, I went to Vienna, to the Max Planck of Economics. I got more into experimental economics. In 2006, Eyal gave a mini course in the University of Melbourne, and thanks to his recommendation, University of Melbourne flew me out there for the summer course, one of 5 international students they brought. And we started talking there about things, and I met Sebastian Kube, who was also a student there, and became a long-term friend and collaborator. And now I have 3 papers inspired by Eyal's work. And Eyal is a co-author on one of them as well. So again, I moved closer to economics thanks to a member of the center. Yes, that's the next one. So I'll just give the introduction. So I'm trying to finish in time. I want to talk now about a thing that I worked on in the last year. Okay, so this went much faster than you can take it easy. So what I want to talk to you about has to do with Nash, which I heard about first in the first retreat, and with this guy. Before the Center for Rationality, in the 80s, Israel was going around and telling people that Nash equilibria are not self-enforcing. And some people started referencing that in papers. So I said, well, if people are referencing, maybe I should write a small paper so they have something to cite, which he called, of course, Nash equilibria are not self-enforcing. This is from the version on his website. And I'll give you the argument, and then the experimental finding and my contribution to that.
The segment.
Yeah. Okay. It's not exactly with this. Or Sen's assurance scheme. So the size argument, and he's not here, right? So I can say whatever I want. So one of the justifications for why we're interested in Nash equilibria is that at least we know that if the players come together before they play and they say, let's play this Nash equilibrium, then this cheap talk contract is going to be self-enforcing because no one would like to deviate. Which sounds nice, but Israel says, no, that's false. And why is that? He illustrates that with the Stagant game, or this version. It's a bit different from what he had. Not much. So we have 2 Nash equilibria in pure strategies, right? We have BB and AA. BB is Pareto dominant, AA is risk dominant. So you could expect that people play either A or B, or maybe most people play A. Now what happens, let's say Oscar and me are playing, and I'm telling him, no, BB is better for both of us, that's clear, so you can rest assured I'm going to play B. You can play B. Would that lead to us coordinating on BB? And Israel's argument is the following. The fact that I'm saying I'm playing B doesn't convey the information I play B. It conveys the information I want you to believe that I play B. And it can go even further. It can be I want you to believe that I want you to believe that I play B, and so on. And I know you're rational, you'll play best response. So actually, my message, I'm playing B, conveys the information I want you to play B. But Oscar already knows that, right? You can get that directly from the payoff matrix. Whatever I do, I want him to play B. So that's Israel's argument. Whatever this message conveys no new information. All the information it conveys, the players already know. So cheap talk shouldn't matter. What?
For those who never heard it, you have not explained it.
Okay.
You explain that the B column dominates the A column in terms of player 1.
Yes.
That's why player 1, the top player, wants the second player to play B, no matter what he plays to play.
Right.
That's because because 8 is bigger. You have to show exactly
Okay.
why it's
I will
not
show.
clear.
If I'm the role player and I play A, I get 7. But if Oscar plays A and if he plays B, I get 8. I would like him to play B. If I play B, then of course this is the equilibrium. If he plays A, I get 0. If he plays B, I get 9. So I want him to play B, and that makes it an equilibrium. But even if I play A, so if I don't play according to my message, I would still like him to believe that I play B. Right? And this is known. For this, we don't need the information. In 2000, Gary Charnas published a paper, an experimental paper looking into that. And he found a puzzling result. He looked at 2 different treatments. In one of them, let's say the row player is sending a message to the column player. In one of them, the row player is sending a message, signaling A or B, and then choosing A or B, and then the column player plays. In the other treatment, the row player chooses A or B, then sends a message A or B, and then the column player chooses.
So it's the order of choosing and sending
Then
message that
for the
changes,
yes,
right?
for the sender. Okay, so the only thing that differs here is whether the sender first chooses a message and then an action, or first an action and then a message. Which, if you look at it in standard, formal way, the player chooses and actually has 4 pure strategies. He chooses a message, he chooses an action. What does it matter which one he writes down on paper first? Right? So, and like the story with the participants in the vault, this piqued my interest. So it's as I see it, it's the same type of phenomenon. We have 2 events, nothing happens between them, nothing that should matter. But still, whether A comes before B or B comes before A, whether these participants come first or this first, or whether the signal or the action comes first, turns out to matter. And you could try to explain it in psychological terms. For example, if I first choose an action and then send a signal, and I'm sending the wrong signal, it means I'm lying. If I send the signal and then do the wrong action, it means I'm breaking a promise. Right? So this could be different psychological constructs. But this is not the route I took. I wanted to capture this in a formal way. What I did is use a multiple selves approach. So I'm breaking down the sender into 2 players, the sending sender and the signaling sender and the acting sender. And now we get an extensive form game with 3 players. We have sending, signaling sender, acting sender, and receiver. And in this game, we can now look for sequential equilibria, just do the standard analysis. Oh, yeah, sorry. This is Charnas results. So this is if we have no signal. This is the level of cooperation, coordination on BB. If the sender first chooses an action and then sends a signal, then we get a bit more cooperation. But if first signal and then action, then we get much more cooperation and significance all over. Yeah, and this is what I want to show. These are my games. So here we have signaling sender choosing A or B. Then we have the acting sender chooses A or B. Then we have the receiver, and the information set is partitioned based on the signal, but not the action. And the action first looks very similar, except for the pairs are permutated and the information sets are different. And now we look for, so trying to say, what does it mean that the signal matters? I'm looking for a sequential equilibrium in which the signal is reliable, meaning the strategy is defining so that the message and the act of the sender are correlated, and the message is believed. The receiver action and the signal are correlated. Turns out this doesn't exist here at all, but it does exist here, and of course we get the pure strategies equilibrium where everything is pure, where you play B, the sender first sends B, then the acting sender chooses according to the signal they observe, and the receiver chooses according to the signal. And then this is a sequential equilibrium. not only that it doesn't exist here, what can exist here is that you get only one. The signal can be reliable, but then the receiver is not going to act upon it. It can be the other way. It can be that the strategy of the receiver is depending on the signal, but then the signal conveys no information. But so we have equilibria that are not bubbling equilibria in the sense that neither happens, but it can't happen here that you get both. The signal is reliable and is acted upon. And you can look at
the 9-9 equilibrium is risk dominated.
Yes.
Can it be that the order affects your confidence that the other guy will indeed play it?
Yeah. There is
equivalent to the 7711, 77000011. It's an easy way to see this dominance.
Okay. Yeah. Nearly.
What you called it yesterday similar. Strategic equivalent. You called it similar yesterday. Same is similar to 77000011. The 99 becomes 11. Then you see immediately.
Okay. There is some work on similar things where the explanation is that if you see something sequential, then you're in a social frame of mind, and you think this is a player and you act accordingly. And if it's simultaneous, then you treat it more as a nature move. So risk dominance is going to kick in. So this exists in the psychological and social psychological literature, but what I'm trying to propose here is something formal, which is very straightforward. You can now apply this to any game that you suggest and pretty much any protocol, and you can get predictions. And I think it is related to other phenomena, but it's much more formalized and well-defined. Right, and that's what I want to say about that. So, I don't know, I think... thank you for bringing me where I am today. I wouldn't have been here where I am today if not for the Center for Rationality. I think it's a very special place, great people, and great academically and great personally. That's what I think.
Part of the historic account of your experience here, when did you take off your sandals? What stage was it? I was waiting to see the next picture. There you were with the sandals.
No, yes, so you see, so now I'm back.
Thank you,
Okay,
Roi.
thank you.